It's the Security Weekly News, episode 246. Welcome to the week of 9 October 2022. We've got iPhone trauma, sexy photos, Killnet, Fortinet, Solana, Luftansa, LofyGang, and Jason Wood on the Security Weekly News.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for Security Weekly News.
Managing and protecting the world's grueling number of endpoints, enabling Tanium's customers to see, control, and protect every endpoint everywhere. Tanium's mission is to provide certainty in uncertain times with the industry's only converged endpoint management. Trusted by the U.S. military and the majority of the Fortune 100 today, Tanium helps manage and protect nearly 30 million endpoints. Tanium, the power of certainty. Visit securityweekly.com/Tanium to learn more. Right now, everybody is talking about cryptocurrency, and the cyber criminals are hiding in the conversation. Cyber criminals use social engineering loaded with urgency and fear to successfully prey on your company, your employees, and your customers. Spear phishing is just one of the 13 types of email threats. Barracuda has identified 13 types and shows you how you can protect your company, your customers, and your reputation. Find out about the 13 email threat types and Barracuda email protection by going and getting your free ebook at securityweekly.com/Barracuda. That's securityweekly.com/Barracuda. All right, we're back. I'm Doug White, the Security Weekly News, episode 246. I couldn't resist this first story. You know, you remember those old Linux gags where you compiled up an executable that had, or even just a batch file, but you can file or a script, that had rm-rf star in it, and you named it Hacker Toolkit, and you put it on a board where people kept asking how to hack. Show me how to hack. I want be hacksaw. All your bases are ours. That kind of thing. No, me neither. No, I mean, I actually can't recall that, Your Honor. I don't know who did that stuff. But this story said that adult websites that implied they were offering sexy nude photos of Larry Pesci, when they were called stuff like nudegirls.mywire.org and sexyphotos.kazao.com and sexy photo online, were all actually offering, quote, fake ransomware, which acts as a wiper that quietly tries to delete almost all the data on your device. What? It's like, what? So a sexy photo site is offering fake. I was very confused by this article when I first started reading it. Cybele, who was doing the report on this campaign, they basically said, and they cleared it up once we read what they were actually doing, said that when you go to the site, it tries to download a file immediately called sexyphoto.jpeg.exe. And most Windows users, of course, don't see file extensions, so they don't see the .exe. They just see sexyphoto.jpg, and they immediately say, yeah, cha-ching. But basically, once they have downloaded that, the executable, when you double-click it, drops 4 more executables called del.exe, open.exe, windll.exe, and windowss.exe. And it also has a batch file called avstart.bat. So then it runs the batch file, and that moves all the executables into the startup folder so that they reload. And then it runs a whole bunch more executables. So they just kept going. It was like, how many executables are in this thing? And it runs another executable that renames all the files on your hard drive to locked _ some number. So it just increments. So it's just a simple little script. And then it .locked _ file. So if you look at your directory, it looks like you got ransomware. I mean, that is what that looks like. And I saw like a screenshot in the article, and yeah, that's what it looked like. But it doesn't actually do anything other than change the file names, which kind of sucks. If it changes all the file names on your whole drive, that would be kind of annoying. But you could roll back, right? So because it doesn't actually go wipe out your shadow files or anything like that, so effectively you could just roll back and be okay. But you're looking at it, and then up pops the ransom note that tells you to pay $300 or $600, but it actually doesn't do anything. The ransomware stuff is just as a decoy, and basically what they're doing is trying to get you to not pay attention while they actually delete everything on your file, because the script goes on to delete all possible system drives from A: to Z:. So it just looks for all the drives. Now, apparently, according to the research, it doesn't work. So it fails because there was a bug in the del.exe file, which meant that it did not actually run when Cybele was trying to put this together. So if it does fail, you could just roll back to a shadow copy, no big deal. But I guess the point of all this is when people are downloading files, we need to be careful about allowing people to download executables, because this has been going on a long time. And people have been playing these kind of sort of gags on people for, I don't know if you remember, there used to be a virus, you probably don't remember, that was called Drive Cleaner. And people would download Drive Cleaner, and then when you ran it, it would say, it would do all this noise, it would make all these noises, and it would say spin cycle, washing, filling, draining, and then it would say deleting all files. It didn't actually do anything, but it caused a lot of panic, and we had people calling, going, oh my God, and you're like, what is it doing? And there's like, it says it's on the spin cycle. And you're like, what? The spin cycle? I think you're confused. Are you looking at a washing machine? But regardless, it was one of those kind of prank things. But this one's a little nastier if they actually get it fixed. Killnet, which is a pro-Russian hacktivist group, claimed responsibilities for large-scale distributed denial of service attacks this week that targeted several major U.S. airports. Side note, this did not cause the airports to shut down. So it just shut down their websites. So apparently Atlanta and LAX were both offline yesterday for a while, but they did seem to be okay this morning. I went and checked. Other airports that they were targeting include O'Hare, Orlando, Denver, Phoenix, and some others in Kentucky, Mississippi, and Hawaii. And if you can't get to that airport website, you'll never be able to figure out where you're going to eat when you're there waiting on your delayed flight. But apparently they generate fake requests and garbage traffic, so it's sort of standard denial of service, and they just pour that at the website, and it depletes the resources, and then they become unavailable. Killnet did expand their target scope to include the entire United States last week. So on their Discord site, they expanded their listing of all the possible targets, and they included saying it's open season on the United States because they're involved in NATO, and NATO's opposing us, blah, blah, blah. They did target last week government websites in Colorado, Kentucky, and Mississippi, and had moderate success. So that's kind of worrisome that somebody can run a denial of service and bring down government sites. But, we all know about that. Fortinet confirmed today that CVE 2022-4684 is being exploited in the wild. That is an exploit that is an authentication bypass using an alternate path or a channel in 40 OS, 40 proxy, and 40 switch manager. Kind of got a theme going there. Everything's called 40. But 40 OS, 40 proxy, and 40 switch manager. And it can allow an unauthenticated attacker to access the admin interface with specially crafted HTTP and HTTPS requests. A security update for these platforms was released on Thursday of last week, and they did send out an email alert to someone. It may not have been you, but they do have a full list of all the devices that are affected in the article. So if you are using Fortinet, you may want to check that out, because a proof of concept is about to be released by Horizon 3 attack team. And once they put that exploit proof of concept out, it means that if you are any of the 140,000 people who are using FortiGate firewalls, which was per Shodan yesterday, basically you might want to consider patching up. They also had a workaround provided if you're not able to patch, and they basically said something that you probably should have already done, which is limiting the IPs that can access the administrative interface using a local policy. So, you should probably have done that on your firewalls already. If you haven't, I would, no matter what kind of firewall you're using, you should probably do that. Don't allow people to access the administrative interface. Solana cryptocurrency owners had NFTs airdropped to them disguised as alerts for a phantom security update. This article confused me to no end because they were talking about stuff being airdropped, but then they started talking about Windows. And I was like, can you airdrop things to Windows? I was wondering, I couldn't figure out if they misused the term airdrop. When they first read it, I thought, well, they drop it on phones, but then they spent a whole bunch of time talking about Windows. So I was like, I don't really understand how this alert was actually being delivered. Maybe they just meant they DM'd it or something. But it basically was disguised as an alert for a phantom security update. So, the attack is apparently ongoing. So they said it started about 2 weeks ago with NFTs titled phantomupdate.com or updatephantom.com. And these were sent out to users that claim to be from the Phantom developers. So when the wallet owner then opens that NFT distributed file, it says all users should update their wallets immediately, and that failure to do so will be a problem since hackers are currently attacking the network. So again, some old-fashioned kind of stuff. But once you approve it, basically it's going to ask you, are you an admin user? And they had screenshots of that, which were from Windows. So it was, again, like airdropped. But once you approve it, if you let it run, it downloads a batch file named phantom_update_2022_10_8.bat from Dropbox. And there were versions of this that had exe extensions as well. So maybe they said airdrop because it may affect iPhones, and then it also affects other platforms as well. It wasn't really clear. It probably will ask for admin permissions if it's on Windows and or a mobile device. Once you got it running, a PowerShell script launches that decrypts some additional Windows commands that are going to get executed by PowerShell, which ultimately lead to a WinDLL32.exe file being downloaded from GitHub. And then that file is executed as well. And it isn't executable, so it's not an actual DLL. It's a literal executable file. The exe file that is downloaded that time is a password stealer, which immediately tries to grab all your browser information, your cookies, your passwords, SSH keys, and whatever else it can grab. And so the advice in the article is if you have done any of this, if you've seen a phantom update for Solana, or anything else for that matter, you should probably immediately look to see if you've been infected with this stuff and transfer all crypto funds from your Phantom wallet to a new one, although that almost sounded like a hack too. Transfer all your crypto funds to this wallet, but make a new wallet, transfer all your funds out, change all your passwords on all sites, and please don't use the same passwords on every site. So pretty good advice and stuff you should already be doing, but if you did actually do that, you may want to defend yourself. So Lufthansa, after saying they were not going to do this, actually did say they were doing this. They decided to ban Apple Airtags from checked bags. And they claimed that the policy was the result, I thought this sounded pretty lame myself, was the result of the International Civil Aviation Organization requirements, of which I'm not sure. Lufthansa said the AirTags were, quote, classified as dangerous and need to be turned off. Now, a lot of air travelers use AirTags. I mean, this is one of the main uses for them. And so you put this thing in your bag, you check it up when you go to the airport, and then you can watch as your bag is left behind on the tarmac as your plane is taxiing away. Then you get to worry about it all the way to Guam. I had that happen. It wasn't that I had an AirTag. It was that I could actually see my bag sitting on the cart, and I was going, "Excuse me, my bag has not been loaded. It's sitting right there." And they're like, "Sir, just sit down, please, and we'll bring you another drink." I was like, "Oh, okay, that'll solve everything. I won't need to jump up and start punching people." But my bag was sitting on the cart when we got where we were going. Guess what? My bag wasn't there. My bag was actually in Guam. I was in Honolulu. But eventually they found it, and so forth. But according to the U.S. Department of Transportation, about 7 out of every 1,000 bags is misdirected or lost. It always seemed like a lot higher than that. But the conspiracy theory is that Lufthansa is really, and I saw an article about this the other day. I saw a guy who was talking about how he could see his AirTag. They landed in Italy. It wasn't about Lufthansa, but they landed in Italy, and they could see their bag still sitting on the ground in Philadelphia, and he knew where his bag was, and the airline wouldn't tell him anything, and he could tell them where the bag actually was, and he was going, it's over there. Can you go to the left a little bit? He could actually see the bag, and they don't seem to know where it is. But the conspiracy theory is that Lufthansa doesn't want to be shamed on social media when they lose people's bags, and then because the travelers are like actually live casting it or live blogging it and going, "Here's my bag," they're lying, blah 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 blah, and they cause a big fuss. So and the question remains: can Lufthansa even enforce this policy? They don't seem to have mechanisms to detect these things, probably, and it's not clear. And most of the other carriers, I did see a mention from United Airlines saying they had no policy on the matter and that you could put AirTags in your bag. it's kind of a good idea. I mean, I've certainly seen people with bags lost for days, and I guess if you knew where they were, I think my record was about 4 days before my bag finally showed up. I didn't need it anymore by the time because I had bought lots of flip-flops and shorts and T-shirts that said "Bite Me" to go to my job interview. But it is what it is. But one of my friends went to Ghana one time, and there was a blizzard in Philadelphia, and his bag was sitting buried under snow, and he was in Ghana for like 19 days, and finally they called and said his bag had been located, and when we liked them he'd given them my number because you couldn't reach him in Ghana, and they were like, would you like us to ship it on to Ghana next week? And I was like, no, I think he's coming. I think he may already be back. And so they actually delivered it at my house at about 4 a.m. on the day he had actually returned from his trip. So, it's air travel. What are you going to do? LofyGang is a cybercrime group that has distributed roughly 200 malicious NPM packages per check marks. The gang, which is likely based in Brazil, appears to be an organized crime syndicate that focuses on credit card data theft and Discord premium upgrades, as well as game and streaming service account hacking. That doesn't sound, well, I guess credit cards sound like organized crime. LofyGang uses Discord, GitHub, and pretty much every other platform you've ever heard of as their command and control backends. The group uses Discord to communicate with its members and has been operating since approximately last October. They control the GitHub account Polar Lo-Fi, which provides tools and bots for Discord, including a spamming tool, a password stealer tool, and other hacking type tools that run on Discord. Since being found last year, they've published around 200 malicious open source packages, which typically contain malicious payloads, password stealers, and Discord-specific malware of the same kind of stuff that they are distributing. Now, they have often apparently used very clean first-level packages, which then have dependencies. So when the package starts installing, it says, do you want to install all these dependencies? And some of the dependencies contain malware. Their hacking tools may also contain dependencies which install other types of malware as well. So if you are installing these things, you might want to review your code carefully or install it in a sandbox testbed before you get too carried away, because especially if you're on Discord trying to download malware in the first place, like we saw with the first story this week. If you're downloading porn pictures, or malware, you're a likely target. As phishing targets have continued to be targeted by anti-phishing training and tools, phishing attacks have improved. According to a report that came out Saturday, nearly 1 in 5 phishing emails now, that's about 18.8%. 1 in 5 would be 20%, but the actual number was 18.8%. Bypassed Microsoft's platform defenses and reached the inbox in 2022. That was a 74% increase over 2020. I don't know why they didn't report on 2021. Maybe they did do a report. That report came from Checkpoint Software. And according to the report, more focus on bypassing detection is the source of increase, since attackers are using obfuscation, they use zero-size fonts, they use other hiding techniques like hiding things in pictures, or one I saw recently was the email that was there was actually a rendering of an email. So they could literally put whatever they wanted in the email, but it was a picture. So if you didn't know it was a picture, you might click on something or whatever. Proofpoint also published a study that said that 83% of the respondents they surveyed had experienced a successful phishing attack. Trend Micro said the number had doubled, increasing by 137% in the first half of 2022. So I guess the moral is we're pretty much going to have to step up our game on this and try to keep it under control, but be ready because you're going to get got. Well, his erotic wood carvings are considered sacred in some parts of the world. One of his most elegant is titled 150 Drunken Slobs at an Orgy in a Pit Filled with Rancid Suet is considered a work of great beauty and peace. Please welcome Jason Wood.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to or happy Ada Lovelace Day. For those who don't know a little bit about Ada's background, she actually was born in 1815 and really kind of came up with the idea of seeing, the potential in something mechanical or a device to basically calculate, beyond numbers, but to do things like create pictures and art and stuff like that. So fun to read about her. The article I actually found today was on SC Magazine, and it announced a contract from the Department of Defense to a cybersecurity company named Countercraft. And this was a sole basis contract, which means no competitive bidding or anything like that. They were awarded $26 million in this contract to deploy cyber deception platform throughout the Department of Defense. Now, at first I was like, wow, that's a fairly good size chunk of change to give to a company, with no bidding or anything like that going on. But then I was like, well, it's only 1/3 of an F-35, so I guess in DoD terms, this is not that large of a contract. Anyhow, according to the article, the DoD is trying to address a couple of different problems in their environment. And I'll go ahead and quote this. They say that they currently lack the technological platform and capabilities to withstand and gather intelligence from an ongoing cyber attack, end quote. So there's two things that we're calling out here. First is the defending, withstanding the attack. This is normally what I think about when I think of deception platforms. You put these things out on your network so that they look interesting and the attacker goes after them. And nobody should be interacting with this in the first place. So as soon as somebody touches it, it becomes interesting. Why did that happen? And, that can be very valuable. You can take separate very quickly the attacker from the noise inside of your network. The part that was a little bit different, and we do this with honeypots, these kind of deception platforms anyhow, but I guess I was kind of curious about it because they seem to really be focusing on the intel gathering aspect of these tools. One of the things that they're citing in their report is basically, or the DoD is reciting in the problem statement, is that their IR procedures aren't helping them out to learn from how the attackers operate. What can they learn from the adversary? What are they after? How do they do things? And because their typical IR platform or procedure is to disconnect the system from the network in some way, cut the attacker's access off. Once that happens, of course, boom, we're done. We're not going to get anything more on this system as to what they're after. So, these honeypots would essentially be left on the network for much longer by procedure, and that would give them more time to collect what information about how the adversary or the attacker is operating. And, we have a large number, or not a large number, we have a number of these type of open source honeypots out there that are available for us to deploy. They gain, maybe have a little bit more limited information and, a lot more work to do the care and feeding on. I would hope that for $26 million, DoD is getting a little bit more. Now, one of the things I always wonder with things like deception platforms is how likely is the attacker to get on the system? I mean, they have to find it. You put this stuff out across your network. Do they stumble into it? I mean, we just kind of wait, right? So I took a look at Countercraft's website, and it turns out, they're doing some additional stuff to try and get the attackers to go after these things. They do they'll deploy what they call breadcrumbs throughout the endpoints inside of an environment that point back to the systems that they want to get the attacker on. They even went as far as talking about placing some of this information out on public websites like GitHub, Showdown, and Pastebin, which, you could start arguing, maybe start enticing people to go poking around it that way. But that's another debate, I guess. What's cool to me, I spend a lot of my time at work looking at commands and techniques being used by attackers. And so, here they are deploying something to really try and leverage that and learn from the adversaries, learn how they do things, and get better really at their defense. That offense can inform defense. So, I think that is pretty interesting, particularly since, threat groups that do this type of stuff, they have their way that they like to operate. If you go back to David Bianco's Period Admitted of Pain, he talks about the tactics or the procedures that attackers use. Getting them to have to change that makes it very difficult for them, because we all have habits on how we like to operate and do things. And if we look at teams we're on, we could probably point at some of those ways that we do things, by habit or by some kind of documentation. Anyhow, it allows them to collect that information and see really what's going on there. I think this can be a lot of fun, particularly because, as I'm looking at attacker activity, I always like to keep an eye out to see what I can learn from them. Every so often, I run across a command or a series of commands where you're like, oh my goodness, you were a clever little devil here. Let me make a note of this because this was really cool. Now, the question that remains to me is, this is government work. This is the Department of Defense. This is the bureaucracy of all bureaucracies. How likely is this really to get fully deployed? I mean, they did the contract. They're spending the money. How functional is it actually going to be? Government all over the world and throughout history is famous for turf wars and deliberately sabotaging projects to protect individual kingdoms and stuff like that inside of government. So while this sounds like it could be really interesting and some possible good gain from it, we'll see how it actually plays out. Or actually probably won't see how it actually plays out, because if it doesn't end up being successful, nobody's going to do a press release saying that this thing died a slow and painful death over the course of several years. So, I guess maybe if there's a success, they'll talk about it. But if this is interesting to you, go ahead and take a look at the show notes. It's kind of an interesting idea. I'm interested to see how this works out.
All right. Thank you, Jason. I'm interested to see how it works out too. I always had a fascination with honeypots, and we used to set some up every now and then, and HoneyNet and HoneyD and all those kind of things, and found out that it attracted too many flies to our locale, so we had to shut that down. This was a long time ago, but it was like, people are targeting us. Anyway, lots of fun to play with. And I don't know if DoD can pull it off, but we'll see. And it's only $26 million, like you said. It's like what, like one flyover or something. So yeah, not a lot. It
costs it's a cruise missile cost, right?
Yeah, I mean they fire 12 of those an hour or something. I mean it's just like it's like, yeah. I mean, all right. Thanks, Jason. Finally, I don't know if you know this, but if you have a new iPhone, it can detect if you're being tossed about in a car crash, or maybe not. This story from the Wall Street Journal, which has a paywall, so I actually linked to a different story that didn't have the paywall, reported that Sarah White, no relation to me, was calling 911. So Sarah White's phone dialed 911 on Sarah's behalf while Sarah was being tossed about at over 80 kilometers per hour and did not respond to the emergency dispatcher on the phone. The automated message to 911 said, the owner of this phone was in a severe car crash and is not responding to their phone, and sent the coordinates of where the phone was located. Now, 911 immediately, of course, did their job and dispatched a team, but they couldn't find anything since Sarah was riding a roller coaster at Kings Island in Cincinnati. The 911 center said they had 6 crash detection calls from Kings Island so far. So it's a pretty good ad for Kings Island, right? You're going to have so much fun here that your phone will automatically dial 911 to try to save you from the sheer level of fun you're having. But anyway, the new iPhone apparently triggers a 10-second warning if it occurs certain types of motions at certain pressures. And if you don't do anything about the 10-second warning, then it immediately starts an alarm for 10 more seconds. But if you, say, are on a roller coaster or something, or, actually are injured, you probably won't respond. And then it calls 911 and texts all your emergency contacts. So sounds like a TikTok challenge in the making to me. But anyway, that's the news. Thanks, Jason. We'll see you Friday for the wrap-up show.